and welcome to Loose Ends Crochet. Today I'm going to show you how I've made the Pebbled beach basket. As you can see, what I love about it is that it is an incredibly sturdy basket. So the sides stand up on their own. Even you'd have to really force them to push them down. So it works incredibly well as a basket. I've used the paint box yarns, which is recycled t-shirt yarn. You could easily recycle an old t-shirt that you have at home to make this basket, or find an alternative t-shirt yarn in a color that you like. So for this I have used a standard 10mm crochet hook, and I've also used a 10mm double-ended Tunisian crochet hook. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be using Tunisian crochet to make the sides, and I'm using a standard crochet hook in order to make the middle. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to wrap it round twice, take my 10mm hook, under, pull up, and then grab that bit there and pull through. So now I have my magic loop, magic circle, and I'm going to crochet 6 double crochets, single crochets if you're in America, into the center. So 1, 2, and you can see that I am encasing that tail as I go. That just keeps it a bit more secure, and I can pull that a little bit. So how many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to pull that tail so that I have a circle. I'm going to encase it as much. So when I'm making this circle, just for the purposes of the base of the basket, I will put a stitch marker in at the first stitch, but I'm not actually making rows in the sense that there'll be a slip stitch at each end. I'm going to continue and spiral around making my circle. So for the round 2, I'm going to put 2 double crochets into each of those 6 stitches, so I'll end up with 12. So I put the stitch marker at the end of that first stitch. So 2, and go all the way around. This is how it's looking thus far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now for round 3, it's going to be 1 double crochet and then increase. And one of the ways that I remember this is that for round 3, you'll be having 3 stitches. Always remember that if you're on whatever row you're on, you should be including that many stitches, so it reminds you of where your increases need to be. So row 3, I'll be doing 3 stitches, 1, and then my increase. So I take that stitch marker, and that's my 1 double crochet. I'll mark that off again, and then my increase. 1, 2, and I'll do this all the way around. So 1, and then the twins, 1, 2 for my increase. I finished row 3 and back at my starting point. So for row 4, I know I need to have 4 stitches, so that tells me I'm going to be doing 2 double crochets and then my increase with the twins sharing the same space. Now for this pattern, what I have done to make it a little bit smoother a circle, rather than sometimes you can end up if you have your increases in exactly the same spot, that it takes on a little bit of a pointed feel. So to counter that a little bit without getting too complex, what I've done is stagger the increases. So one row will be the increase first, and then the double crochets, and then the following row will be the double crochets and then the increase. So for row 4, we're going to increase first. Take out my stitch marker. So the increase always means 2 in the same, and I'll put that back in. So I've done my increase. Because this is 4th row, I need to add 2 more stitches. 1, 2, and then from here on out it's the same. I will increase all the way around. So at the end of row 4, I've just done my increase, and then I add my 2 double crochets. So for row 5, we know that we need 5 stitches, and because I started with the increase last time on row 4, for row 5 I'm going to start with my double crochets. So that will be 3 double crochets and then my increase. One, 2, 3, and then my increase. So I have completed row 5. Now I'm going to complete row 6, and because I started with the 3 double crochets, this in row 6 I'm going to start with my increase. 6 stitches. So my increase is 2 stitches in the same one, and I'll mark that first stitch of the 2. There's my increase, and now I will do 4 stitches. 4 plus 2 is 6, and be on my way. 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase. One of the things I love about working with the t-shirt yarn is just how quickly projects come together. It's one of the delights. You could sit down for an hour or so and be finished. So this basket works up very quickly and makes a lovely gift. So I'm going to finish row 6. So I finished with row 6, and that began with an increase. So for row 7, it will begin with 5 double crochets and then my increase. And I'm going to continue in this fashion, alternating the start with the double crochets and the increase. And I'm going to actually do 12 rounds. In other words, there'll be 10 double crochets and an increase. Actually, on row 12, it's an increase and then 10 double crochets. So I'm just alternating each row, and I'm going to complete 12 rounds to make my base. And I found that this makes a lovely sized basket, which is approximately 10.5 inches or 26.5 centimeters wide. So you can see it's a really nice, substantial size without being too overbearing. And it is 16.5 centimeters tall, or 6.5 inches tall. But you can obviously vary this, and now that you know the pattern for the base, you simply continue to go as large or as small as you'd like. Okay, I've actually just measured this, and I'm now at 10.5 inches or 26.5 centimeters, and I've actually only done 10 rows. So you just have to gauge it according to how large you want it. But I followed that method of double crochets, increase on one row, and then increase double crochets on the other. And just remember, whatever row you are is the number of stitches you're going to do. So now that we've made the base, this is the exciting bit. We're going to start our Tunisian crochet sides. So in order to do the Tunisian crochet, you are going to need 2 balls of wool, because you're going to be working 2 sections, a forward pass and a repeat pass. And the way that we do that is using our double-ended crochet hook. So I've got my 10 millimeters and I've got my 2 balls of wool that you can see just there. So for this first row, after we've completed the base, we are going to pick up our loops, as many as we can fit onto our hook, and we're going to only pick up in the back loop. So this is your front loop, you're going to pick them up in the back loop. So I'm going to swap out this standard crochet hook, and I'm going to start my forward pass, picking up the loops in the back loop only. So now with Tunisian crochet, you're leaving those loops on your hook, and I'm still using my 1 ball of wool that I began my base with. So I'm going to continue around, and you're going to do this until you get to a point where it becomes uncomfortable. So it doesn't matter where that level is for you. That's the beauty of it. You can turn the work into your return pass when this becomes too full or too uncomfortable to work with. So I'm going to put a few more on there. And again, just remember that you're picking up only in that back loop. Okay, I've still got a fair bit of room, so I'll add a few more. Okay, now it's getting to be a little bit uncomfortable. So when you're working with Tunisian crochet in the round, you have to do your return pass, but you're doing it on the other end of your hook. So you're going to turn your work so that that hook becomes beginning, and I know which end is which. This is the beginning piece. Now I need to join with my second ball of wool onto the end to make my return pass. So I find I make quite a nice sized tail pass. So I find I make quite a nice sized tail, and I simply beginning, and I know which end is which. This is the beginning piece. Now I need to join with my second ball of wool onto the end to make my return pass. So I find I make quite a nice sized tail, and I simply loop that over. So you're going to draw through, unlike traditional Tunisian crochet or Tunisian crochet that's flat, I'm not making a border here, so I don't need to pull through just the one loop at the beginning of the return pass. I'm going to pull through both loops, and this will remain true the whole time. So I've done that first one, just pull it a bit taut, and you can see this is my tail for my return pass. And then I'm going to simply pull through, just like I would normally, through 2 loops all the way back. until I have just the one loop on my hook. And you can just tighten it up a little bit. And now I'm my last loop. So I'm going to tug that a little bit. So I've reached the beginning, but I still have more loops that I need to pick up. So I'm going to turn my work back. And this is where it's important, if you don't want to get all tangled up, that you keep moving your work and your pieces so that things don't get confused. So this is the end of my return, and then this piece is my beginning. And you can see that the beginning piece is in that back loop. So now I know that I'm in the right position and I have the right strand of wool that I'm following. So through that back loop, and I'm going to continue to pick up my stitches, my loops, until again it feels uncomfortable. So for some you may be able to do it in one or two returns, and sometimes you may have to do 3 or 4. It just all depends on what your comfort level is, and there's no right or wrong. And that's the beauty of this, is that you go until you're comfortable, and then you do your return pass, get those loops off the hook to make it easier, and then start again with your forward pass. And remember, at this very first row when you're picking up the loops, you're only doing it in the back loop. Okay, so I've got a full hook now. I'm going to turn it again, and I'm keeping that straight. So this is my return, and this is my forward, and they're not tangled. See, one goes to one. Okay, so now I return pass. Again through 2. These giant balls. Okay, so I'm back at the beginning again, and I know I'm back at the beginning because this is my tail piece and this is my front piece. So I have to turn the work around so that I'm facing in the right direction again. I'm going to do it that way and put that underneath. Okay, and then remember to check. So I know this is pulling under the back loop, so that is in the right place to do my forward pass. So I still have some more loops to pick up. I have all of these to pick up, and then you can see the difference. These are the loops for the foundation row that I've already picked up and then dropped back off. So let me finish this first row with picking up on the back loop only. Unwind. I'm hoping I can get them all on this pass without having to do another one. Let's see how many I can squeeze on. Okay. 1. And that's my beginning. Okay, so I'm going to turn my work back. Again, making sure that I'm not tangling up, because believe me, I've tangled a fair few times to know that if you nip that in the bud at the beginning, it saves you a lot of headache later. So just double check each time. So I'm going to take these off with my return, again, making sure I'm pulling through 2. Okay, right. Now let's just double check that I've gone all the way around and I haven't lost that last stitch. Nope. all the way around. So you can see that's resembling traditional Tunisian crochet. Okay, so we're going to be completing the basket, the sides of the basket, with the Tunisian full stitch. And again, I've called this the Pebbled Beach basket because to me it looks like you've got sort of a pebbly appearance, and the rigidity that that stitch makes is fantastic. What you will notice is that it also is quite a ridged interior of the basket as well. So I need to finish or turn my work back so I'm facing in the right direction. So I turn it. There we go. So make sure, yeah, that's the back. And there's my front that I had through that back loop. Okay, so the full Tunisian full stitch is worked through these gaps between the vertical bars. So essentially all you're going to be doing is inserting your hook in these gaps between the vertical bars, and you're going to keep going all the way around. You're not stopping, except obviously when you have a full hook and you need to do a return pass. But other than that, you're going to continue to spiral all the way around until you get a basket that is the height that you desire. So let me show you in practice how that actually works. So I've got, that's just the beginning tail. So I'm going to insert my hook in that gap between the vertical bars and pull up. And that's all I'm going to do, just like the normal Tunisian full stitch. But because this is in the round, when your hook becomes full, you'll need to turn your work and make your return pass. And again, it's not a complicated stitch, but it might take a little bit of, just practice, partly because of the awkwardness with, not awkwardness, but with the bulkiness perhaps of the t-shirt yarn, in addition to needing to do a return pass by turning your work. Okay, so that's quite full. So I'm going to turn, and I'm turning it back. So that's my beginning, and this is my return. Remember, always through 2, not 1 loops. And you can see when I'm doing the return pass, I am inside out almost of the bag. So you can see this is the back row. So don't panic that you have inverted it in some way. When you're doing the return pass, you're always doing it with the back or the inside of the basket showing. And we need to turn our work again. Turn it back and make sure that our front is on top. And so now again, you'll be turning the work. This is made by the back loop row that we did at the very beginning when we picked up our loops. So that will always sit on the outside. And of course you're obviously operating from the right to the left if you're right-handed. So we just continue with this full stitch, and you can see already how it's beginning to mimic the finished basket. And we continue around. Again, see how the bulkiness can be a little bit awkward to work with. That does become easier as the rows become established. Do you see how bulky this almost looks as though you have two row thickness here? It isn't that, it's just that it takes, as it evolves, that then becomes pressed in a little bit more. So just bear with it. So you're going to continue to do this until your basket reaches the desired height. Okay, so I'm going to do about 5 more rows to show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how to finish off. So I've done several rounds, and for the purposes of this video I'll show you how to finish off. So at the moment this will be a low-lying basket. Now first to point out is you can see how much curling is there, and as you go a bit higher that curling is less obvious, but really if you take a minute to just wrap your arms, you know, around it and knead it a bit like dough, and knead it in the right direction, that certainly helps. And what also helps is this finishing stitch. So when you get to the beginning, and you can tell that because of this slight staggered back loop row that we did, then you have 2 choices. So you can make a rim that looks like this, which is sort of a more pronounced rim, or you can make a rim that is straight up, which I'll show you. So if we were to make the double rim, it's very easy. You're going to ignore your return strand for the moment, and then you're simply going to slip stitch off. So you will do your full stitch as normal, loop up, and then pull through, and you will do that all the way around. And what happens is you can see it bending to create that second loop. Now I would also suggest doing this with a smaller hook. So at the moment I'm still doing it with 10, but you'll get a more a tighter finish, one that I think looks, whoops, yeah, finished that, about to make a stitch there, which I think makes it a bit neater, and it also pulls it in a bit more like I've done here. Can you see that, the difference in that? But so this is an easy way to finish it off. You're simply slip stitching your stitches off, and when you get around to the end you will simply leave a bit like that and pull that through and tie it off. So we'll do a few more of just a full stitch, slip stitch, and this makes a very nice but a more pronounced rim to your basket. And see how that's already bringing the basket upright, but it does make it more pronounced. It'll be very effective with a slightly smaller hook as well. So as an alternative to this double-edged top of your basket, you can instead create a basket where the edge simply sits on the top and is less pronounced. It's a little bit more subtle than that one, but it depends on the effect that you are hoping to achieve. So this is almost invisible, and the way to do that is to simply slip stitch through just that top horizontal bar. So you're inserting your hook in that top horizontal bar of the top row, pulling through and slip stitch, and you continue to do that all the way around. And this has the added effect of finishing off the top, but it pulls the basket to sit straight as well, so it gives you a really lovely finish, and it's very easy to do. Slip stitch all the way around, and I mentioned before that you can almost have a turn it inside out, so it's also just as effective and just as sturdy having turned it inside out. Enjoy, and thanks for watching.